Really handy tool in DesignShop is the ability to manipulate the line type along which your lettering element flows. We have a few different options, and they change the shape of your lettering so you can better adapt that lettering element to your embroidery job. To start with, we have the straight line type, and that's just straight across. Let me change the color of my lettering to red so that when I reference the blue line, it's not confused with the blue thread. But the line that we're changing is this blue line right along here. And typically, that is going to be the setting for your baseline for your lettering. The straight line type allows you to just type horizontally. And if you click on a handle of a letter and drag it, it will drag along that line. If you hold Control while you click and drag, it will drag off of that line. So rather than left or right, up or down, think along the line and off of the line. The next type is a vertical. Let me apply that so we can see it. Let me zoom out so it's a little bit more visible. And here, that line goes down the middle. Now, this is where that baseline analogy gets thrown out a little bit. On all the others, it holds, but on vertical, not so much. It tends to center, and you can see that from the handles. It centers all the letters along that line. And again, if I click on a handle and drag, it will go along that line. Let me undo. And if I hold Control while I drag, it will drag off of that line. The vertical line is handy for going down a sleeve or down a pant leg. It's less handy for doing multiple lines of text. Next, let's look at arc. So arc places my lettering along an arc. And with that, we have a few properties. So we have the radius, and that's the distance from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. And then the lettering falls outside of that, so it treats the edge of the circle as that baseline. So as we're going through here, the letters falling along that line, and you can see with the arc line type, the letters fan as they go across. We can also change the angle. So if I change this to 45 degrees, we can rotate where along that arc it falls. Let me take that back to 0. And let me change my radius. So if I want to tighten that up, I can make that number smaller. So the closer in to the edge I get, the tighter my arc gets. With those arc properties, we've got the ability to appear on the top of a circle or on the bottom of a circle, and that will just be with those degrees, the top of the circle being 0, and because a circle has 360 degrees, the top is 0, the bottom is half of that, 180. So if I want this to appear on the bottom of the circle, I can type 180, and now I'm on the bottom of the circle. Now, because I am writing clockwise around that circle, this may not be how I want to read it. For the bottom of the circle, you may want to write counterclockwise around the circle, and then it gets a little more readable. Now, when I'm going counterclockwise, instead of treating the line like the baseline, it treats it like the cap height, and as it fans out, my spacing can get a little bit odd. For being on the bottom of a circle, it's not uncommon for me to turn auto kern on if my lettering can handle it. And then I bring that space down quite a bit to kind of bring those in. So if I want lettering at the top of a circle and at the bottom of the circle, and I want them both to read from left to right, I need 2 lettering elements. So let me duplicate this. And then I'm going to put 0 in here and have it write clockwise. Click apply, and then I'm going to drag this up. And then I'm going to drag this down. And we'll change this. And let's zoom out. And I think I need to just move this up a little bit more to kind of complete that circle. So if I want it reading from left to right, having it as 2 lettering elements, so let me move this down, you can see I would probably do the top first, depending on what I was doing. There's one, there's the other. If you just wanted it to write around the circle, like something like a state seal, you could just keep typing and adjust your spacing by adding spaces or using these kerning marks. Okay, so let's get back to just a single element here, and let's change this to custom. The custom line, notice that my properties went away. My custom line still has that blue line, but now I have a point on each side. Let's go make those a little bit bigger. Tools, options, preferences, and I'm going to make these a little bit bigger just so they're easier to see in this video. And what the custom line allows me to do is edit this line. So if I left click, I'll add a straight point. If I right click, I'll add a curve point, and I can move these along however I would like. I can change this, and I can really mess up some type. The custom line for lettering tends to work better with smaller lettering along a more gentle path. Think of the scallop of a police badge. That's the example I tend to use most often for this. Slower, more gentle path tends to work a little bit better for this. Really abrupt changes tend to kind of tilt your letters all over the line. So let's clean this up. I'm going to delete this point, and maybe I'll change this point over. So I held shift and clicked on that to change it over. Now I'm just going to delete this. If you're trying to match artwork, instead of kind of messing with all the properties of an arc, if you want it to just arc over easily, you can do that matching the artwork. The trick would be to have this arc out perfectly. Hold Control as you drag this circular point, and it will arc out perfectly. So arc is really nice if you know the numbers, if you're trying to get a specific size. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to do with custom if I'm trying to match artwork that I already have up. For the next line types, I want to start a little bit cleaner. I'm going to start with a slab serif because the line across the top of the lettering and the bottom of the lettering is a little bit easier to see when you have those nice clean slabs. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with a straight line, and then we'll begin to manipulate from there. And what we're looking at are perspective and envelope line types, and they work very similarly, but they affect the lettering quite differently. So I'm going to change this to perspective. And now you'll notice that I have, just like with custom, I have a line across the bottom, but now I have a line across the top. And I have points in each corner. So I have a point on each end of the lines. And just like with custom, I can add points, I can drag them, I can manipulate them, but you see they do very, very different things with my lettering. So with perspective, I can make things look like they're going forward and backward in space. So it comes way forward. Now I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to change this to envelope just so that you get an idea of the difference between the two. Both of them, you can manipulate the lines. Both of them will change the overall shape of the lettering, but the width of the letters does not really change with envelope, whereas it really does with perspective. So perspective tends to make things look like they're going forward and backward in space, whereas envelope does not. So I'm going to delete that envelope for a minute, and let's go back and see what other kind of trouble we can get into with perspective. So perspective's really fun for making things look like they are going really far back. So we can make, there we go, titles that look like they're going back in space this way. We could arch this out and get really crazy with it. you can really manipulate how that lettering looks. So both envelope and perspective have another feature with them, and that's scale to fit. What these allow you to do is kind of make templates out of your lettering elements and then swap out the lettering, and the new lettering will take the shape and fit the size of the old one. Really handy for things like team names. So let's start this from scratch. I'm going to click on my lettering tool. I'm going to click on screen. I'm going to type just name, and then I'm going to give myself just a couple of extra letters. I like starting this with something that has kind of a medium number of letters. I don't want to start with a really short name. I don't want to start with a really long name. I like something kind of in the middle. I'm going to be swapping this out. Then I would select the alphabet that I'm going to be using. And then I would go in to envelope or perspective. For templates like this, I tend to use envelope more. And hit apply. And then I'm going to change the shape of my lettering to whatever I want it to be. Let's change the color as well. So now I have something kind of set up the way that I want it. All right, now I can change this out. Let's look at the differences. So let's go William. And it fits within that shape. It follows the form, but it fits within that shape. If I go Will, it stretches to fill that shape. And that's because scale to fit was on. So let's go back. I'm going to hit undo a couple times. There we go. So I have kind of my starter where all my letters are the shape and ratio that I want them. I'm going to turn scale to fit off. I'm going to hit apply. And then let's do that again. So let's go William with a W. And it fits within. It does not scale to fit. If I put my name in here, if I could type my name, I kind of squish to fit within there. If I added some more letters to my name, it would squish even farther. So it will squish in to fit, but it will not, if I put what everybody at work calls me, I will not stretch to fill. So with scale to fit off, you will squish to fit if you're longer, but you're not going to stretch to fill if you're smaller. With scale to fit on, no matter what you put in there, it's going to be that shape as best it can. So let's go back to William. And then what if we changed it to Billy? Here we fit within that shape mostly, but we're not including the descenders. The descenders don't squish up in and change the size of all of my letters. Let's go back to the start. If you wanted to squish to fit everything, you could include descenders, hit apply, and then change the name. So here we go, William. And then if I wanted to, I could change it to Billy. But now all my letters just get shorter to accommodate that descender. So whether you include descenders or not is kind of up to you. What I really like to do is use all capitals, kind of get the shape just the way that I want it with a medium number of letters, and then I get all my settings set, and that sets the aspect ratio for my lettering. I've got scale to fit on or off, depends. I typically stay off. That way if I have a small name like Ed, it doesn't just go Ed. It fits, but it doesn't stretch to fill. And then descenders, if I have the room, I typically don't check include descenders. If I check include descenders, anybody who has a name that has a descender in it, so any lowercase y's or g's or any of those, all the rest of the letters will pop up and shift up to allow for that descender to fit within that shape. If not, if I don't include descenders, all of the lettering will look the same as everybody else, and then the descender will just fall below that baseline. And that, if I'm doing shirts where I have the material and I have the room, great. If I'm doing name tag patches where I don't have the room, then I either need to include descenders or I just need to make sure I'm using all capital letters so that I don't have descenders to deal with. With the envelope line type, you can achieve an arc-like shape. I would call it more of an arch, where your letters are going across a circular form, but all your verticals stay vertical. This is a different look than an arc, where the letters would fan across the form. So with all those different line types to choose from, you can really customize the look of your lettering.